Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to today's GoDaddy Small Business Webinar. My name is Deanna Furlong. I'm a customer education advocate here at GoDaddy. Today's topic is going to be how to maximize the security and privacy of business data, more specifically using a cloud solution, and more than that, the Office 365 cloud solution, which is what we offer here at GoDaddy. Joining me today, I have not one, but two product experts from Austin, Texas. Mira Lynn. Mira is an Office 365 product expert, and our second expert is Dustin Packwood, and Dustin is based out of our Gilbert, Arizona offices for GoDaddy. Let's take a look really quick at the objectives we're going to discuss or handle today for you. We're going to take a look, an in-depth look at the Security and Compliance Center. I'm going to have my pros dig into the tools inside that panel and how you can use them to provide security and privacy on your side. They're very simple to use, as you'll see. We'll also talk about what are called Office 365 business policies and how they are used to create data governance controls. And another really simple tool that's really powerful. As is our tradition here on the Small Business Webinar series, we like to start with some tech trivia. So I'm going to open up this question for people to vote on. Mira, will you read it aloud for those of our listeners, people who are just listening in? Sorry about that.
What is the average number of days a hacker sits on your network before they are detected?
So please participate. I mean, what I find terrifying is the fact that it's 3 months at a minimum.
Yeah. I was looking at the answers. I'm like, there's not a good answer.
There is no good answer. You are correct. But you know, this is, and when we're talking about it, we're talking about your private network, what you're keeping on premise, what you secure, or you have an IT managed service control for you or handle for you. Okay, so everybody get a chance to vote? Okay, let's share out first I'm going to share out the results. Okay.
Oh wow, people are
clearly have a lot of pessimists. So 180 days is the winner right now. Let me close this out and we'll take a look at the answer.
140.
140 days.
It's better than what most people thought.
Yeah, but still pretty freaking bad.
But this is according to statistics that were collected from FireEye Incorporated and the Ponemon Institute, that a hacker sits on your network for an average of 140 days.
Yeah,
that means it could be more.
Yeah. So FireEye, for people who don't know, they're like an IT analyst firm, so that's all they study. And honestly, I did not look up who Ponemon was, but that is a scary statistic. And again, this is just private networks that you keep on premise, but which leads you to, in my opinion, question if that's not that safe, then, and a lot of people don't agree that cloud is safe, you know, let's take a look at how it's different and how safe, what safeguards are used to protect your data, your email when it's in the cloud.
And I just want to interject and remind people that there's a Q&A button that they can click and ask us questions about any of this.
Yes.
A lot of it's going to go by really fast, and we'd love to spend more time on the things that you folks are interested in. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Again, all about the viewers that have taken time to join us today. So by all means, jump in, post a question, and one of us will answer you probably real time. If not, we'll get back to you in our Q&A report after the webinar. So I did the research on this piece. It's basically a really quick high-level overview that I'm going to give you of Microsoft's strategy and tactics that they use to protect their cloud servers. So what they use is this defense in depth strategy, which is actually a fairly common IT security protocol. And it uses layers and safeguards at each of the layers so that when one fails, or if one fails, I should say, others take over and support it. So there's no gaps is the idea. And in this model, or their model, they have layers of physical, logical, and data. So physical would be threats that are posed by people, process, facility. Logical would be the actual servers themselves, applications running on the servers, administrative tasks done on those servers. And then data is just that, the data. It's how they segregate and make sure that on a multi-tenant system, like a cloud service, that your data is not commingling with any of the other customers, that you can safely share hardware resources without worrying about the fact that somebody else is, you know, up there also.
No mixed dancing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like my comparison was, it's like being on Ghostbusters, no crossing of the stream.
Oh yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Anyways, really quick, some of the physical safeguards. One of them I thought was very fascinating. Dustin?
They just plain don't tell you where their servers are. Then can't get into what you can't find.
Exactly. So basically, Microsoft data centers are a bunch of Area 51s. Just kidding. But that's pretty cool. Can't even find it. Other ones I know of are they automatically delete any unused or unnecessary accounts. So if someone leaves the company, moves to another group, or just hasn't used it in X amount of days, they delete that account so they have no access. Another big one that they use on multiple layers here is eliminating as much human intervention as necessary. They try and automate tasks. So you know, whether it's avoiding a malicious attack by a human or an accidental mistake by a human, they try and get rid of as many possible or potential threats using that. And, you know, it's very strict, like enormous background check. There was like a funny article about the background check and how crazy it was, you know, like must donate your firstborn to become a data center employee. So they take it really, really seriously. With regard to the logical layer, so that's your servers again, applications running on your servers. Again, a lot of automation. So there are basic tasks that are constantly running on it. Diagnostics, what do I want to say? Diagnostics, patching, stuff like that, just updates. All of those, they try and keep a minimum of human interaction. So they're going to automate all of those. This also prevents like inconsistent configurations. So if one guy or gal does it this way and then another one does it slightly different, that can goof up a lot of things. So they try and eliminate the human factor. And again, if a server or basically if a server gets infected, it's quarantined until it can, and you know, data is moved off of it and it's quarantined until it can be repaired. So finally, at the data layer, this is basically just pretty straightforward. They use a bunch of segregation and isolation techniques to prevent data from commingling between customers. And it's just super strictly controlled. It's also controlled from the people working in the data center. They have no access to your actual data. So pretty strict at all layers.
And in general, being on such a massive cloud is also more secure for you because of sort of like a herd inoculation.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're on your own private network, you only learn from and grow stronger from the individual attacks against your individual network. But you have the benefit of Microsoft learning from every single attack that they get, that they're protected from, that you know they get better, and you are then protected. You get the benefit of all of those experiences. Yeah.
I love that herd inoculation analogy. So more is better, actually. More is better in this case, for sure. Really quickly, to address the privacy concerns some people may have around cloud-based data, Microsoft takes this very, very seriously. They want you to know that if you have anything on their servers, their cloud servers, it is your data, always. You retain the rights, the title, the interest, anything in your data that you store, it's your data. I can't reiterate that enough. They don't mine any of their customer data for advertising. And if you choose to leave, you always take your data with you with full fidelity. So it's a big deal. They also, I mean, I know some people have thought about this or heard about this in the news where, you know, the government is asking for access to data on servers. And I'm not going to share my opinion, but Microsoft's stance, his official stance, is they redirect the government to you directly. So if they're asked to share your data, they redirect the government to you. And you know, if it comes up that the government has a case where it's legally prohibited for them to refer to you, they always attempt to challenge any type of disclosure around that. So if the government redirects it back to Microsoft and asks them, no, you need to do this, they also try to disclose when that's done, so that people are kept, you know, keep it really transparent and secure. So you feel comfortable. They want you to know that they take your privacy seriously. But let's take a look at the meat of everything today. Let's go into the tool. Mira, my pro, take it away, please.
Absolutely. Here we are in the actual Security and Compliance Center in an Office 365 account. And this is the same thing that you will see in your Office 365 account if you have admin privileges, if you can access it, of course. And we're just going to go through all the different tools that are here for you to monitor and manage all of your data and your security. The first one up is called Alerts. And that's pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. You can take a whole set of activities that could happen on your site or on any of your apps, and you can create an alert for that so that you would get a notification if those things happened. So just to give you an idea, they have one preset alert type, which is a pretty good one to be monitoring, because if you are the person who's in charge of this has not given someone a privilege elevation, such as making them, you know, changing them from user to admin, chances are that that is malicious. So that's
pretty high.
Yeah, right. Good chance. But the custom alerts that you can create are very nuanced. And just to give you an idea, you can, if somebody accesses a file, or if somebody copies a folder, or if somebody creates a sharing request, if somebody syncs, if somebody creates a group, if somebody changes a password, if somebody...
So basically all aspects.
You know, like you can see this list goes
all
on.
aspects of your Office 365 experience you can control all of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just watching how much you're scrolling down through different options.
Lots of options.
Keeps going and keeps going if somebody changes site permissions, for example. So it's very impressive. And for example, let's just, if somebody creates a sharing invitation, I want to know about that, because I don't want anybody to share, share any files.
Yeah.
We all have access, and whoever has access has access. So sharing alert. And then I can add users specifically. So I could add just Deanna, or I could add everyone. I could add everyone in our domain. And then I can specify who to send it to. So I want to receive this alert.
Super cool. Easy dialogue-based selections from Dropbox. I mean, you don't need programming to set a an alert?
Absolutely. Right. It's it all depends on what your policies are. You're able to customize it to the extent that you need to.
Okay.
And then, of course, you'd be able to see the security alerts all in one place in this dashboard if there were any. But luckily, we haven't had
No alerts. We're safe, which is good.
Yeah. Next up is permissions. When you set up your accounts in the GoDaddy dashboard, you can set admin or not admin, and that's as far as you can go. But if you on that admin side, if you want to give people much more nuanced permissions within the Office 365 environment, you can do that here. And they have several preset roles that they've thought of that include a certain number of permissions. You can see those over here on the right.
So
We've
wait a
created.
second. Those are like assigned roles, and those are the suggested settings there?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Sorry. Thanks.
Yeah, no, these already exist in the dashboard, and then you can add folks in your domain to this role, to this set of permissions, or you can create your own. So we've created supergroup.
There you go. Masters of our universe.
Yes, there we are. So it's you have a lot of control here, and it again always comes back down to what are your policies and what are you required.
Yeah. What's important to you? I mean.
Yeah, I'm going to skip over classifications because that has to do a lot with data governance that we're going to talk about at the end. But very quickly, I'm going to go into the data loss prevention options that you have. And this is really all about device access. You can set very specific rules on devices to manage how people using iPhones or tablets are accessing your data on your site. You can, for example, require a password. You can change specifications about that password. You can have a report happen when something is attempted that doesn't meet those policies. And then you can actually prevent specific actions on those devices, like blocking screen capture, for example, or blocking Bluetooth connections, because those are notoriously insecure. But just to give you an idea of how many options you have in controlling all of these security points, you have control over a whole lot of those potentially risky interaction points.
Right, and the one that you told me about previously that I thought was awesome. Somebody loses their phone or their phone's stolen, you can wipe your data from their phone, or they're let go and you don't want your data on their phone, or they quit, your data.
Right, and if they've synced if they've synced to their phone, then you can go in and wipe it. That's all in device management, which deserves its very own webinar because it's so in depth.
True.
But that is all included in device management.
All right.
I'm going to pass it over to Dustin now for the rest of that list.
Yep. And then, so Mira mentioned reports, and I actually went there first. So any report that you generated, you could see here. This is the report dashboard. Microsoft gives you some by default. You can even go in and manage schedules if you had custom ones set up. And then any reports that had been run, you could download them here. But I want to go from there to threat management. And that's right under data governance. What Microsoft is calling a threat in this case is anything that's malware, anything that's spam, anything that's a phishing or a spoofing attempt. At best, these are just going to be things that hit your productivity and slow you and your employees down while they have to sort through all this stuff and delete out emails and figure out what's going on. At worst, it can do damage to your employees' machines and much more kind of pervasive than that. It can do damage to your business reputation and to your domain reputation.
For sure. Which
is stuff that you obviously want to avoid as a business owner. So we'll start with mail filtering. And as you can see, this is anti-spam settings. They have a default one set up for you, and Microsoft has some of the best spam filtering in the market. But if you wanted to, you could go to custom, you could turn custom settings on, and you could start creating your own policy.
Oh, okay.
And if you click through that, it's the same thing that Mira was showing you earlier. It's just clicking and selecting options. All very intuitive, all very easy things that you can do. So the next thing that I want to show you guys is the anti-malware. The anti-malware is very similar. It's going to have your default policy. You can go in and edit that, go under settings, and you have all sorts of stuff that you can change in here if you wanted to. So that protects your incoming messages from spam and from malware. If it caught anything, it would throw it here in the quarantine, and you'd be able to see the messages are actually flagged. We don't have any, which is good, again.
No spam. Woohoo!
If something actually came to this quarantine that was a legit email, you'd have the option of clicking on it and moving it to the actual user it was supposed to go to, and like approving it to go through your system. So that's also a good place, or a good thing to know about the quarantine there. And then the last thing is DKIM. So that stands for Domain Keys Identified Mail. And it works hand in hand with things like SPF records if you set that up in your domain DNS, and other things like that, to prevent phishing, to prevent spoofing. And spoofing is essentially when somebody mimics your email address to send out emails, and it looks like it's coming from you, but it's not.
And that is the worst. The absolute worst. Your friends are like, "Why'd you send me this?"
Yeah, it's you get those.
Imagine if your customers were like, "Why did you send me this?"
Yeah, it's like those fake Facebook friend requests, but they're doing it through your email. And then this is where you would set up, policies and things like that to make sure that emails being sent out through your domain name get signed and authenticated and sent, through cryptography before, which excludes other people from being able to utilize your domain and everything along those lines. The next place I want to jump around to, and I'm being difficult and not going right down the left-hand side, is service assurance. I know what's coming on the rest of the presentation, so I have the benefit of setting up Mira and Deanna for what comes after me. Service assurance is a really, really cool thing for anybody that's in any sort of regulated industry. Once you go under service assurance, you click on settings, and you would select your region and your industry. So for us, I selected North America and technology, because that's what GoDaddy is. And that gives me all sorts of things in the dashboard, but much more importantly, compliance reports, trust documents, and audited controls. So as you can see here, Office 365 and Microsoft has said, if you're in North America and you're in a technology company, here's all sorts of things that you may have to worry about. You may have to worry about GRC assessment reports. Here's everything that Office 365 is doing for you to help you there.
So this is kind of just like a freebie add-on type of thing to let you know if you've identified yourself as this region and this industry, that these are things you may or may not be required to report on, and then they show you what you need to report on from Office 365. I'm just asking a clarifying question.
Yeah, absolutely. So this, as you can see here, this gives you frequently asked questions, white papers, giving you everything that Office 365 is doing for you in terms of security, privacy, compliance, protecting your data, and also making sure that your business is protected against all of those regulations. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, but a lot of small businesses report that a lot of their time goes towards protecting their information, protecting customer information, and being in compliance with all of these rules and regulations. And I don't know about anybody who's actually on the webinar with us, but I don't know about all of that.
Yeah, well, even compliance people, it's a lot to cover, especially if you're a small business, even up to like 100 people, that's a lot to handle and control. And we're going to clip things along because we're pretty close to time here, and we still have a couple more areas to cover. Let's hit the last one, that search and investigation.
Yeah, absolutely. So this kind of builds off of what we were just talking about. E-discovery is a huge thing for small businesses. And e-discovery is any time that, and hopefully you never have to use this if you're on the webinar right now, but it's any time that you have a civil or criminal proceeding against your business. And e-discovery is the process of having to supply electronic documents for that, which can take a lot of time if you're manually sorting through your email inbox. I know I have thousands upon thousands of emails in my email inbox. through all my folders and everything, and it can take forever to find stuff. And this section of search and investigation is there for that. So you can set up cases, and cases allow you to actually dictate who's allowed to make these searches, who's working on it. It gives you a consolidated, essentially, folder for a very particular case.
Cool. Okay.
And then you would use content search to look through everything that's attached to your Office 365, try to find very specific emails that you need, and then you can do an audit log search as well. So all those activities that Mira scrolled through earlier that you can set alerts for, you can also come here and run an audit log on those activities. So this section is really helpful for when you're being audited or you have to prove something in court. This helps you collect everything and present it in a nice, organized fashion.
Fantastic.
Again, hopefully you never have to use it.
Definitely. But so let's go then and finish up with what I think is the most powerful piece of the tool. I don't know how many of you, we've been talking about compliance and regulation. I don't know how many of you out there have businesses that are at high risk for litigation, or if you are in an industry, say you're a dentist or a physician, that you have to comply with certain regulations. Mira did some litigation study around small business lawsuits, which I thought was kind of scary.
Yeah, well, the Fulbright actually did the study, but I found their data, which was that 90% of all businesses are engaged in litigation at any given time, and that 36 to 53% of small businesses are involved in litigation in any given year. So you may think, oh, I'll never have to use that, and I hope that's true. But the chances are pretty good that even as a small business, that something could happen. Mostly it's contracts, so getting those checked out is a good idea.
Yeah.
But it could still happen. But data governance, above and beyond the litigation needs that it meets, data governance is all about keeping data, keeping files, keeping stuff that you need to for a certain amount of time, and then getting rid of it when you don't. So a lot of people talk about retention policies and data governance, and retention policies are also about deleting stuff as well. So really quickly, I know we're at time, but I'm just going to go through the data governance tools in the dashboard here. You can set up archive mailboxes so that if things that meet a certain label or everything is put into the archive mailbox and it's not in your way, it's not in your active email inbox, but that it's still kept. And something to note is that these archive mailboxes still count towards your 50 gigabytes of storage per user. So if you did need something that was bigger than that, then there are options, and we have add-ons that you can get, but those are other webinars that are coming up. And again, I'll tell you
they are. So the what you're saying though is the solution is very robust to begin with, but if you are one of those high risk businesses, or you are subject to regulatory compliance, there are additional safeguards that you can add with the premium security package.
Exactly.
And we will discuss those in upcoming webinars.
Exactly. Yeah. So under the retention policies, you can see that we have a couple samples set up. So to give you an idea of where you might use them, tax documents, for example. But when you create them, you have the option to, let's call it retention. You have the option to specify how long something is retained. And Office 365 is saying, we guarantee you that this data that meets this policy will be there and will be accessible for the amount of time that you've specified. And that is crucial if there are any kind of regulations that you are subject to.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt. The other thing that I thought was really cool is this satisfies like a lot of large corporations use what's called a disaster recovery plan. And now smaller, medium-sized businesses have the ability to do the same thing. I mean, I don't want anybody on the webinar or anybody, period, to suffer a catastrophic loss like a fire or a natural disaster and lose, your business data, but if you want a plan in place, cloud storage is one of the best options you can choose, the least expensive to, retain your assets. So it's not just about necessarily retention and protection, or compliance, I should say, but it is also about maintaining your records and all your hard work and your data and everything.
That's a great point, because usually the compliance aspect overtakes this discussion. You're like, you are required by law, blah, blah, blah. But that's a great point, that if you want to just have a backup in case, I don't know, maybe your office is on the coast, some things
in Florida,
crazy weather, exactly.
Yeah.
And like crazy stuff happens. So this is an insurance policy for all of your business data, and it wouldn't be gone if your office was wiped out or your machines were all gone. You would still have all of your data. So that's a great point. And so you can specify retention for forever, or for a certain number of days, months, years. You can base it on when it was created or when it was last modified. And then you can specify if you want Office 365 to automatically delete it at that point, which is what, for example, a lot of law firms, they definitely do that because they're required to keep things for a certain amount of time. But after that, they absolutely don't want to have it on hand. Because, if anything happens and you happen to have that on hand when you don't need to, it could be a problem.
Yeah.
A lot of compliance regulations say that after the time period, you actually need to delete it. That's actually part of the compliance. And also, you don't want to be taking up space with stuff that you don't need anymore. It just makes every search more complicated after that.
Right.
And then in terms of what applies to these retention policies, you can have it match certain words or phrases, or Office 365 can actually detect if there's something like a credit card, if there's a credit card number in something, and they can include that. But then also, in terms of what gets included in this, I want to show you the classifications, because that allows you to specify labels that then get pushed out to all of your users, and then it's standardized across all of your users. So you're not relying on them to remember to add these to a policy or remember to apply a label.
Okay.
And, when people create labels, they can be all over the place. So
right on.
Yeah.
I think that covers the tool. So before we leave you, I am really, really hoping that you will take just one moment to answer this very important poll question for me. Can you see it? Please, please, please let us know. Was this webinar helpful today? Did we share things with you that are important to you as a small to medium-sized business owner? What else can we share with you? Please don't hesitate, even if you want to put it in the question and answer so I can print it out and let you know what, let us know what you want covered. This is all about you guys. The only reason we do this is to provide information in a webinar environment to you. Our next small business webinar is August 9th, and we are going to be discussing mail encryption in depth. So at that point, we'll talk about the add-ons that actually a lot of companies need to use, especially if you're transporting any type of sensitive data over email. We'll talk about the email encryption add-on that is part of the premium security package. We'll show you how it's used, how it works, and basically cover that in depth. I will be sending a follow-up tomorrow to this webinar, which will include the deck, a recording, and the deck I include for you has a lot more information and some screenshots just to provide orientation about what we were talking about. And I'm also going to send the white paper that I discussed earlier on in the webinar. So thank you very, very much for joining us today. We hope to see you on August 9th. Thank you, Mira. Thank you, Dustin.
Thank you.
Cool. Everyone, have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.